So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to our various listeners in various time zones. We welcome you again on another podcast of our global experts, where we'll be talking to another global expert, Dr. Vandana Verma. She's a well known nutritionist, a wellness expert who has spent years helping people understanding how simple and mindful eating can transform health, and her focus on geriatric nutrition and preventative wellness makes her insight especially valuable for today's conversation. So, baton on to my co host, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dr. Mrigna, and a genuine and a humble thanks to Dr. Vandana Verma. So far, we've been talking about elderly care and other aspects of it. But one aspect which we have always been talking about, but really not come on board, is the nutrition part of it and the well-being part of it. And Vanna has been there and she has seen how nutrition makes a difference to a particular person's well-being, and we are very happy to have her on board. So thanks, Dr. Vandana, to come on board as such.
The pleasure is mine. I'm glad to be connected and connected to so many people worldwide, not just from where I belong.
No,
So,
I absolutely agree with you. Before Dr. Mrigna says, Dr. Vandana, believe you me, we are so happy that these kind of podcast and this kind of information is actually going to the world level, which is kind of a assurance and a reassurance that we are on the right track. And the moment we translate it into vernacular languages of India, I'm 100% sure that at the ground level, at the grassroots level, what they call the third sector calls it the grassroots level, I call it the ground level. People will start actually understanding what elderly care is and what nutrition is and what we are talking about. So, genuinely, thank you for coming at the podcast.
Lovely.
Vanna, very excited to have you here. So, I have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask. Some might sound a little personal, but honestly, working with seniors for more than a decade, we have seen a lot of things. And we have had some questions that I feel that at times you need an expert to answer these. So let's start with something very basic when we're talking about nutrition, when we're talking about especially elderly population. So why is nutrition, do you think, is so crucial for the elderly population? Of course, we know at every age having the right diet and nutrition comes like feel for the elderly population. And how does aging affects our body's ability to absorb the nutrition? Because maybe when I was 40, I'm eating the same food, and maybe my dietary habits haven't changed. So by 60 also I'm eating the same food, and maybe let's say I've turned now 80, but yet I'm eating the same food. But yet the nutrition I feel, or the nutrition that is coming to me, it seems to have changed. Many people say, oh, the food is no longer pure and this is happening or that is happening. What are your thoughts on this one?
See, let's begin with the first part, which is why is nutrition more important, or what's the role of nutrition in elderly people, right? So, number one, we need to understand as we age, the whole system ages. It's not just about wrinkles, it's about the whole system changes. The absorption of an older person is much lesser than what it was in your younger ages. Your metabolism slows down, your bone density slows down. The way you used to the amount of iron that you were consuming earlier, might be consuming the same iron, but the absorption really goes down. The gut health reduces. Gut is a very important organ in which you can actually, whatever you eat is metabolized in the gut, so it is absorbed. So eat, I always go by the fact you're not by what you eat, you are what you absorb. So not just elderly, for people who are in their younger stages but their gut health is not good, they do not get the same amount of nutrition from the same amount of food which a person with a good health or a good gut health would get. So in elderly people, these are the few struggles that they face, due to which the need for a better nutrition in fact increases. So eat. I always go by the fact you're not by what you eat, you are what you absorb. So not just elderly, for people who are in their younger stages but their gut health is not good, they do not get the same amount of nutrition from the same amount of food which a person with a.
Hmm.
Sometimes people feel, are in old age, what a life. Now we don't need that much of energy. But no, you need that energy to just sustain the body, not to run a marathon, but to sustain your body, to do your ADLs, to do your, to have a good life. It's not about your lifespan, it is about how well you are living. Quality of life. I think at elderly care, what we focus on is the quality of life. You cannot control how old a person is going to live. A person may die at 70 or 90, but if they are living up to 90, they should have a good. And for that, nutrition plays a very important role in all elderlies. If they are not taking proper nutrition, they would see that their body being at 80 would feel like a 90.
Hmm. No, no, Dr. Vandana, I see it. What you're saying is very right. For the simple reason is because I see it day in, day out because of my father and my mother. And it so happened is because it is what you're saying is nutrition probably is more important when it comes to a certain age because your capacity of digestion also becomes directly proportional to what you eat. So till a couple of years back, my father, as a son, I used to tell him and bring from this field, tell him, अरे कुछ भी खाओ आप क्या फर्क पड़ता है यार इस उम्र में नहीं खाओगे कब खाओगे.
Yeah.
But now, after so many doctors and all that, finally what he realized is that for him, what suits him best is that he needs to have three different fruits in the morning. So he'll have a papaya, he'll have a mango, or he'll have a pineapple, or he'll have a banana, or something like that. And then obviously dal roti, being an Indian, he'll have it in the lunch, which has really helped him a lot.
See,
Otherwise,
with older people, there is one thing which we need to understand. They will be having some medical problem or the other, right? Either they would have cholesterol, or they would be having diabetes, or
he
they
has
would have
all of
had
them.
a heart issue, right? So it's not a diet, it's not just a diet. It has to be customized according to them. Some might have dental problems, they can't chew, or aap unhe bol rahe
My
ho that
father,
you should
my
have
father
sprouts.
went through. That's what I'm saying. My father went through a mouth operation, cancer operation. Half his mouth is not there only.
Yeah, then how can you expect him to have food which a regular person would be having?
Ha,
So for
ha.
an
So
elderly person, the diet is completely customized according to their medical problems, their lifestyle, what they are living, and their resources also, because some of them live alone. They don't have children around them, so they can't prepare 5 meals a day. The plan can look very fancy by me writing every 2 hours, eat this. Who's going to prepare all that? They might be
नहीं
having the
होता.
maid coming
Definitely,
once a
I
day,
100%
you know.
agree with you because
So
there are a
these
lot of
are very
people.
practical issues.
So what I would suggest, what I would probably request you to probably ask you is that for a person, let's say, who's not the middle class, who cannot afford domestic help full time or things like that, who has to manage on their own, who have these issues, what would you expect? What do you suggest to them how to manage it?
See, the first thing, if you're talking about somebody from a lower middle class where the income is not much and we cannot have many fancy foods, right? There are certain foods which are number one, it should be local. It
It
should
should
be
be
produced, it should be local.
okay.
Okay, you don't have to look for fancy foods like quinoa or amaranth. You don't have to go there. You have to stick to what's available in your particular area. Now, India was always a country known for its millets, right? But somewhat we got into a lot of refined flours and all, which is actually not very good. So getting back to the roots is much better. In India, if you see the villages, people who live in village have much better diet than people who live in proper cities and towns, because we are so influenced by Western culture that we try to incorporate everything in the diet and leaving the basics. So and the people in village are even lower middle class se bhi lower, still they have a proper diet. So what the focus should be, number one, the diet should be local. It should not be something which is very complicated. Whatever carbohydrate source you are getting should be from something which is complex carbohydrate and easy to chew. So something like a dalia, right? Dalia is again cheap, high, a very good source of carbohydrates, because in elderly we need good source of carbohydrate because energy बहुत ज्यादा चाहिए होता है. It is a complex carbohydrate, so it adds that fiber content which helps them in constipation because they are very prone to constipation. So dalia would be a very good meal. Adding one meal dalia, you are sorted either in lunch or dinner, because see, now that if we are talking about lower middle class, we don't have to talk about a lot of variety. They wouldn't get bored on daily basis. So if they have one meal of dalia, or sometimes khichdi. Khichdi is a very versatile thing, right? Khichdi is one meal which you can prepare according to whichever culture you belong to. South Indians have a different tadka to khichdi. North Indians have different. If you go towards Lucknow, they have a very different form of khichdi. So khichdi is a vegetable in which you can just put anything, steam it, and everything is palatable. You can have carrots, peas, you can add whatever is the that seasonal vegetable of that time in your khichdi and make a one pot meal. I always say that elderly should have one pot meal and not look at a fancy plate. You know, the sight of a full plate with two chapatis, sabzi, dahi, dal, it is too much and very overwhelming for them because their appetite is quite low. They have to chew. It's a lot of effort. So making one pot meals is always a good idea. That will make it nutritionally balanced. At the same time, it would not be a task. It will be like, okay, I just have to eat this much. So they would end up
I
eating.
totally, completely agree with you. But the point is that where I'm coming from is that whenever I have my meals, my father, he's just 87 years old, nothing old as such. But I have to serve him food. It's not that he can't serve it. So I ensure that he obviously gets small servings of the dal and dahi and this and that. It's nothing to debate about your profile or your profession as such. But at this age, I feel that when you give him the variety, okay, it becomes a. Obviously, but what you're saying is right. That when it comes to those kind of food, which we also do, but kabhi kabhi jo hai, that typical dal, chawal, and the roti, not a chawal because North Indians don't eat so much chawal, but the dal, roti, and sabji, probably in a moderate quality as such, makes a lot of difference also.
No, of course. You have to serve them the regular dal roti sabzi. I am talking about the happily eating. We are not talking about people who are eating. Because if a person is eating, then of course serving them every meal, you should be serving them different. Sabzi roti, there are so many types of vegetables. Sometimes you can make ghia, sometimes you can make any other vegetable. I am giving you the easy hacks which you asked
Hmm.
about. The easy hacks for people who are not able to fulfill their nutrition. They might not be having help of making sabzi, roti, dal, dahi, is what we are talking about. If somebody has help and they can get the whole plate, then you know that's not even something to talk about. We are right now talking about elderlies who are not able to make a plate of their own and
Hmm.
nutritionally not balance their meals. What can they do? And they cannot afford, is what we started with, right?
Correct,
So I'm
correct, correct.
giving you affordable options in which not too much cooking is required. If cooking is there, then sky is the limit. I can give you a diet chart with 100 options. One can keep
No, I
making.
agree. I agree with you. I agree. Totally agree with you. I just probably what happens when we are discussing it obviously comes from the first impression or probably the first angle when we are discussing
Yes,
about.
because see, it is very important when you're feeding an elderly, it is important to see the texture, the variety, the color. If you make it more colorful, because they're like children, they should not be eating a boring meal. That's what I said.
Correct,
Khichdi is a
correct.
very versatile meal. Khichdi can be made in 10 ways. You can add different tadkas and make khichdi into something else. So, these are the foods which will give them nutrition, which will not be very, costly to make. At the same time, easy. Even if the elderly is cooking on their own and they don't have help, they can still make a pot of khichdi, is something. And when it
100.
comes to fruits which are more pulpy, like papaya, banana, are always easy for them to have. If we expect them to have apple, or अगर आप apple को steam करके खा रहे हो, fine. But if you expect them to have a whole apple and they don't have dentures, of course they cannot eat that. But if at all there is any help in the house and you can steam and mash, it's like a pediatric diet. So whenever we treat a geriatric diet, there is a lot more common with a pediatric diet. What we feed the babies for the first 2 years is what are the meals we feed to the geriatrics in the later stages, when they're, when they don't want to eat. It's not about, they might get bored with dal roti also. I always tell them have pasta and noodles also. Why not? You can make so much with meals. It's not necessary to have
let
just
let
roti
let
sabzi
let
dal.
Dr. Mrigna ask the next question. Then I'll tell you the real example how I interact with my father and what we eat.
Yeah, sure.
No,
Mrigna, on to
no,
you.
absolutely. It's a wonderful conversation. I was enjoying the part of it when we were talking about various diet options, and I think it's very valid what Padma is talking about, and what Pankaj also discussed about that. When you're talking about individuals which are elderly, it's very important. Ideally, what they're consuming versus what is possible to be consumed. That's a huge thing. And they can, like Vanna said, they can be a million ideal diets she can refer to versus what is really possible to be given to them. And in this case, I have a question, Vanna. So when we're talking about this, how do you think, why it is so important, especially when we're talking about geriatric population? Do you think the diet angle or the nutrition affects, or for example, in somebody who has, let's say, a reduced frailty, or has to improve mobility or anything like that? Do you think to improve their mobility or other things, can diet be useful, or there can be certain suggestions for them who have to improve, people who need to improve their mobility? What do you think about that?
See, fertility is not just about age. Okay, it is about your muscle, bone, your energy levels, too much to do with it. It's not necessary that a person who is aged will have these issues. Even a person who is young can have that. So diet really helps in these cases, in their mobility, in their overall energy levels. If you give them a diet which is rich in omega-3 carbohydrates and balanced proteins, they can definitely see a good change in their overall perspective, their mobility, their cognitive health, and all of these. Because it starts declining slowly, but at the same time, it's not necessary that it doesn't happen with people in 40s. So we cannot define
Yeah.
that just for old people, but for anybody.
No, very well said. Actually, I was thinking about the same thing when you spoke about, especially when you're talking about from the cognitive health related angle, the similar things, no? Especially when we're talking about brain health, uh, memory, mood. I mean, even a lot of times you're talking about dementia risk, that individuals may have. So, do you think nutrition or having certain type of nutrition can change that risk, or can add to cognitive health angle, or can engage, especially when we're talking about elderly and those who are trying to prepare or eat healthy? Do you think what kind of things should they keep in mind when we're talking about cognitive health?
See, when there are many research papers now being published that people with dementia or cognitive health, they have really been benefited with a diet which is known as MIND diet, MIND, which is a combination of Mediterranean and DASH diet. DASH diet is a diet we generally use for hypertensive patients, and Mediterranean diet because it's full of very good quality fats. So things like adding salmon, olive oil, eggs, antioxidants, foods rich in omega-3, seeds, nuts. Nuts, again, they can't chew the nuts. So you have to make it in a powder form. So these foods have to be given to them in different form. But if you add foods which are rich in these particular things, really help people with brain issues, with people having dementia, Alzheimer's, they do show a very good response. See, these are progressive. Cannot be, some people might think, okay, if I have this diet, this can be reversed. No, it can slow down, which itself is a very good thing.
Exactly.
We have to see what the goal is. We have to not think that we are not advocating that diet is going to cure you, but diet is going to slow down the process and make it, make the journey smoother for you.
Yes, especially when we're talking about like neurodegenerative disorders, actually, we're talking about diseases which actually most of them are not curable. And what we're trying to do is what
Yeah.
I say to my all my clients is be able to manage. So we're trying to manage the condition, we're trying to manage the symptoms, we're trying to reduce the steep slope the person is on and maybe reach to a plateau phase. Whereas in though there may be the degeneration will be there, but nonetheless, it is more or less stable and it's not a very steep degeneration. So yeah,
Yeah.
actually it makes sense when we're talking about. So can you put a little more light on DASH diet and Mediterranean diet and simplify it for our listeners? What does they
So,
consist of?
so see, a diet which is rich in certain things like fruits, fibrous vegetables, right? Low on sodium, not high in terms of good fats. Fats are very integral at that stage. Mediterranean is quite essential on fats and B12. So fats and omega 3s like adding fish, chicken, egg, and also adding olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, olives. Salmon is a very good source by adding these foods, walnuts, nuts, chia seeds, flax seeds. These are certainly the foods which come under this category of DASH diet. So if one focuses on this kind of a diet and makes, like every day diet. There are so many people now who are getting into veganism, where they are actually missing
Yeah,
on these a lot of these factors like meat products and all the dairy. So for them, B12 is one vitamin which is very deficient because it's only available in these foods. So they have to then consider supplementation of B12 because you cannot not have B12, right? Okay, fine, you convert into a vegan for your own personal reasons, whatever. We are not going to advocate on that, but if you are, then you need to take care that the person is given B12 supplementation because this is very important for cognitive health.
Well, that's interesting one now, especially when we're talking about vitamin B12 and veganism, which is a very common thing in India. We see a lot of people out of religion, out of personal reasons, turning into vegan. And B12 deficiency, and I think vitamin D3 deficiency has become an epidemic these days. Not
Yes, these two, definitely. Even D3. And even in India, a place like India, which is so sunny all the time, we all are deficient because we are mostly indoors. The time to get the sun, the right time, we all miss it mostly. And who stands in the sun for half an hour? I have not. I don't remember when did I do that apart from when I went on a beach. So I know that we are all indoors. Whenever we are going out, we're applying our sunscreen. So
oh,
that's
then
the real.
applying sunscreen also reduces your D3, is it?
If you are applying sunscreen, how is the ray going to penetrate on your skin?
Ah, that's very interesting. Very interesting, actually.
okay, Dr. Vandana, you have touched on a very soft area for a person who doesn't go out at all. Okay, and I think people like me, most of us, land up taking that once a week tablet of D3 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And okay, what's the harm?
it's not the harm. It's that something which should have been going on
Yes,
outside.
yes.
I'm taking it as a
Nothing can
capsule.
replace what sun will do to our body.
Correct. So, so that is one part of our age, which is not too old or too young. Well, let's say 55 plus or 55, which is, I think, just the beginning of childhood. But coming to the elderly care, when it comes to what you are saying, I totally agree with you in terms of diet. How do you challenge it, or how do you explain it to people who are hardcore vegetarians?
We don't have to
And
convince them. If they're a vegetarian,
see, point is
they
that
just supplement it. That's it.
no, it's not that. It's they agree that these are things are like forget eggs or forget non-veg anything. I don't understand in terms of definitely like, we all talk about we should have omega 3 omega 4 and all that, which you guys know better, but end of the day, if you look at most of India, hardcore India has been purely a vegetarian country.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, whether it is Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan or anything, even hardcore of Punjab, that tandoori chicken is actually a farce. It's purely a Delhi concept. Punjab, hardcore Punjab is purely vegetarian. All milk products. How do you explain it to people like my family who are into purely not into non-vegetarian? How do you convince them of aging in terms of this is what you should do?
Okay. See, firstly, Pankaj, it's not that only non-vegetarians are going to age well and vegetarians won't. Okay. There are many vegetarian foods which are rich in protein, right? But the problem is then you have to add them in your diet. You can't expect that a katori of dal will do the needful, or just having one paneer in a day will do the needful, right? Firstly, one needs to know how much protein they need, because when we are talking about non-veg, we are basically talking about protein. That's the main thing that it's producing on the table, right? So if we are talking about protein, they need to introduce more vegetarian options in their diet. So if you, and how much protein is required if a person is, say, about 60 kilos, then 60 grams of protein is required in the body. Okay. And one katori dal has barely 8 to 10 grams of protein depending on that dal. So agar aap pure din mein sirf one katori dal kha rahe ho, then that is not enough. Right. And for the similarly, if a non-vegetarian is just having one egg in a day, it's not enough. It is about the quantity and the right foods. So Virat Kohli, out of all the people, has turned vegetarian, right? And look at his body. It's not that he's not getting enough protein, but he must be adding all the right things in his diet then. And also, supplementation plays a role. So, if you want to be a vegetarian, but at the same time, you want to look after your body, then you need to follow a proper diet. You have to add the foods. And that is how I convince my patients. Number one, if a patient comes to me and then tells me I'm a vegetarian, but I don't want to do anything about it, then I will say that is the door and you can please leave. Because then I can't do anything. You have to eat. I don't have to eat. I can only advise you and tell you what you can, what you should be eating. I cannot be putting you IV drips of the food, right? So the patient has to understand. Now that counseling session happens with the patients, because with elderly patients, you need more patience and you need to make them understand. But at the end of the day, the whole thing depends on what the patient's goal is. If their goal is to have a body of a certain way, they will have to follow things. People who are going to the gym these days, most of them are vegetarians. If they're vegetarians, they're relying on protein shakes, right? So they will have to either introduce vegetarian options. And when I say vegetarian option, it has to start from breakfast. There has to be a breakfast which has protein, a midday, lunch, evening, dinner. 5 intake of protein in a day, which is at least 10, 10, 10, 10 grams karke, 10 to 15 grams will make it a 60, 70 grams. That is the average weight we are talking.
So,
Yeah.
if you could like just share one simple golden rule for eating, especially eating well after 60, what it would be?
See, I would say number one, eat smaller quantities, eat foods that you relish, because at this age you really don't have to think too much about, you know, having everything right. So thoda bahut you can splurge if you liked your pickles and you were not having that, including them a little bit, and not eating alone. That really makes a difference. If the elderly people are eating with somebody, they really, their appetite increases. But if you just give them a plate in a room with no person, they their appetite just goes off. So these are the things which I think we should be focusing on people above 60, because all that, this is all that they want with their boring meals. If you put a little bit of pickle, it would make their day. If that pickle is served by their daughter or their son, it would make their day. And if the quantities are smaller, it would be easier for them to eat.
No, that's a very, yeah, please.
No, no. Why I'm saying is that, Dr. Mira, sorry to interrupt you, is
Yeah,
that
not at
when
all.
I was doing the audit, okay, when I went to Kolkata to the audit for these old age homes, and when I asked these widowers, okay, ma'am, okay, you've been a widower for so many years. What would you like to eat? हाँ हम तो मच्छी खाएंगे हम तो लुच्ची खाएंगे and all that, getting it. So India, that is the time I realized, this is almost 15 years back, I realized irrespective of the background, India is so diverse that the same food cannot be replicated in Ahmedabad. Because I've done the old age homes in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is purely vegetarian. Whereas for them, having an egg or a fish once or twice, probably, well, let's say 4 times a week, is a part of the lifestyle. Whereas for people in Ahmedabad, there's not even an egg involved, which makes a lot of difference, Dr. Mrigna and Dr. Vanna.
No, agree with you, Pankaj. Agree with you. And actually, it does makes a lot of difference, especially I think they say there is a unity in diversity in India. And I think that unity lies and begins with the food in India. What do you think, Dr. Vandana?
Yes, I agree, and that's the beauty of India. We can sit with the Gujaratis and have our chicken, and they will be having their dhoklas and theplas sitting on the same table.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the country. So, Vanna, coming to the last question for the conversation, though we don't want to let you go, but considering the time and everything, what do you think, Vanna? Any incidents you think, especially related to food, that you feel that you any experience that you had with a senior that touched your heart, especially related to nutrition and your field of work, that you've been doing? So that's my
See,
favorite question I ask all my guests, by the
this
way.
is a personal answer I'm giving you from
Yeah.
my own experience, not a patient, but about my grandmother. In fact, my husband's grandmother. So she was in her 90s, and me and my mom-in-law really like our ghia, tindas, and toris and shalgam. And my grandmother, she was from Amritsar. So she has been, the chole and Amritsari kulche, aam papad, and all of these things. My mother-in-law would, make ghia ki bhai, this is your age to have ghia, ab ghia khaya karo. So on a table, whenever we used to put ghia, she used to make, a face and put 2 chammach. ठीक है? And 3 spoons of achar for roti maybe. And the day mama used to make chole or fish or something fancy, 2 chapatis with this much of food, no achar needed. And I told mama, मैंने कहा, I don't think we should consider her as an aged person who should eat ghia. She digests chole better than us. Okay, so I think we should have ghee and let her stick to her. And she used to have this box of gummy bears and aam papad hidden in her almirah, which when you go there would be wrappers all around. So she used to digest them well. So, and she had some little bit of BP issue. This, but she was in her 90s. So I feel when a person is in literally the fag end and they enjoy eating something, we should not be policing them and stopping them from eating everything. Unless and until there is some issue with the person and they're not able to eat, we should not become the masters and start telling them, don't eat this. At this age, you should be eating this. Let them eat whatever they want to. If they are, because food can be the only source of happiness in some people's life. So we should not take that away from them, is what I realized with her. And I used to then get her aam papad and gummy bears. Being a nutritionist, I used to be okay, enjoy.
I think that's a
Mrigna,
beautiful good
Mrigna
one.
and Vandana, I totally agree with both of you. And that is what I follow with my own old man and my mom. And I strongly believe in one thing because I've seen so many old age homes and all these people. I said, "अब नहीं खाएंगे कब खाएंगे?"
Exactly.
ठीक है जब तक हिंदुस्तान में इंडियन मेंटालिटी इन द इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव इज दैट अगर आपको खाना पसंद है हजम हो जाएगा ठीक है यू विल एंजॉय
Exactly. Food is not the demon over here. It is our
करेक्ट
relationship with the food, how we treat it.
करेक्ट and you believe me it's not that they're going to be eating 10 chola bhaturas or anything it's
No.
that happiness of eating the chola
Yeah.
bhatura
Yeah.
itself.
The more you stop them, the more they crave for it. And sometimes that's the only source of happiness, as I said.
हाँ
That little ice cream or gulab jamun would have just made their day, which we deprived them of, so that they don't die of diabetes, which they are
Vandana, when
anyways
I
going
go
to.
to my father's house, which is every 15 days, I make pizzas for him. I make burgers for him. I ensure that he's eating the kebabs and everything. My only discussion with him is that, Papa, aap nahi khaoge, kab khaoge? And he's just only 87.
I like that you were emphasizing on only.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he's a Fauji guy. Okay, he just started 87. There's a long way to go. So let him start his good meals, yeah, now.
Yeah, agree.
Totally, totally. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for this wonderful conversation. It was not only, I think, centered about food, it was a lot of things we covered, from good moods to happiness, and how food is the source that connects us all. So, thank you, everyone, for the conversation. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Vandana.
having me over.
Thank
It was a great session.
Thank you, Dr. Mrigna, for the entire initiative, and really thank Dr. Vandana for coming on board on such a short notice. And I'm sure
My pleasure.
once we convert the entire thing into different languages, people will understand that food is not only Loki Tunda and Karela. It
Yeah,
is more than that. And once the awareness comes in, uh, we all will understand the language of food as well as nutrition. Thank you. Thank you very
definitely.
much.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye
Okay,
bye.
Okay, bye.
bye.